Today we're going to be recording the A-line skirt. So you'll find the sketch and handout in Brightspace. This also includes measurements to start from. You're welcome to use your own measurements, but if you'd like to use the standard measurements, they're listed on the PDF. Okay. We're going to start with creating a rectangle. So create piece rectangle. Okay, this is just going to be our initial draft for the skirt. So I'm going to select and I'm going to bunny click because I want to make my rectangle my exact measurements that I need to start my draft. So I'm going to bunny click. Over on my right hand menu, I can enter my X and Y distances. So for my Y distance, I know I want my skirt length, which is 25 inches. Okay. You can see here when you do this on your rectangle that you have a minus and a positive. So that will just determine which way the rectangle is built. It doesn't really matter, but because I have it located on my screen like this already, I'm going to do negative 25 for my Y. And my X, I'm just going to make it 15 for right now, and then we will determine our hip measurement for the width of our draft. Okay, this just gives me a little bit of room to play with. So I'm going to choose OK, and then it's asking me to name my piece. So I'm going to name this with my initials and the assignment number, which is 2301, and I'm going to call this front draft. And I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to right click OK to get out of that function. So now I have a basic rectangle to begin my draft. So the first thing I want to do is determine what width I want for this panel. So if this is my waist seam, I'm going to treat this as my center front seam and this is my sweep. So I need to move this line to where my hip measurement will be, because that will be the widest part of my skirt that I know the measurement of right now. So on our sheet, on the sketch, we have a calculation for getting the hip measurement. So it's going to be your hip circumference, which is 36, plus 1 divided by 4 plus 1/4 inch ease. So if I do this calculation, I get 9.5 inches. So I know that my hip width for this front panel is going to be 9.5 inches from center front. So I'm going to offset this line. So I'm going to go to Create, Line, Offset, Even. I'm going to select the line. See it highlights in red. And I'm going to choose over here to add. I don't want to replace my center front line. Okay. And I'm going to right click OK. And you see I'm in value mode already, which is what I want. Had you not used value mode to create your rectangle, you might look like this, okay? But this doesn't allow us to place exactly where we want it to go. So you would bunny click to get back to value mode. And here I'm going to type in negative 9.5, which is my hip width. Okay. So I have a hip line or a hip width line. Now I want to get rid of this line. I don't need this line anymore. So I'm going to go to Modify, Line, Swap. This allows me to swap an internal line for a perimeter line. Your internal line is the one that you just created. It is not creating the outer shape. So I'm going to choose my new hip line. I'm going to choose Delete Original Line over here. Okay. All that's going to do is after it swaps, it's going to get rid of that extra line that was swapped that I don't need anymore. I'm going to right click OK. I'm going to choose my perimeter line and I'm going to right click OK. Okay. So it swapped those two lines. This was my internal line, is now my perimeter line. The perimeter line turned to an internal line, but I asked for the program to delete it. So it's gone. So now I have a rectangle that is the length of my skirt, the width of my hip, a quarter of my hip. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to indicate my hip level, and then we will then designate our waist measurement. So the first thing I want to do on the sheet, it says that our hip level is at 8 inches. So I'm going to offset even again. And I'm going to choose my waistline. And again, I want to add, I don't want to replace. And I'm going to right click OK. And I'm going to choose -8. And then I'm going to say OK. This is now my hip level. Okay. I'm going to right click OK to get out of that function. The next thing we want to do is mark our waist measurement. Okay, so right now this width is 9.5, but our waist is smaller than our hip. So on the sketch, there's a calculation for your waist as well. Your waist measurement is 28 inches. Divided by 4 is 7, plus 1/4 of an inch is 7 1/4. So I want to mark 7 1/4 from my center front. I'm not going to change the shape of my perimeter yet. So all I want to do is put a notch there. So I'm going to choose Create Notch Standard. And there's 2 ways to do this. Okay, I'll demo both. The first way is to right click Distance from Point. I'm going to click and hold on my waistline and slide in to that center front waist point. Once I see that yellow box that indicates I'm on the point, I'm going to release, and it's going to let me input a value. This value is going to be positive for clockwise and negative for counterclockwise. So since I want to go this way on the piece, I'm going to type in -7.25. Okay. So now I have a notch here to indicate my waist measurement. The other way to do that would have been to go to Create Notch Standard and bunny click directly on the line. When you do this, you see you get now a yellow arrow from this end, but I want to go from this end. So you see over here on the right hand side, I have a beginning and an end of my line. So when I switch between them, you see the arrow up here switches. So I would want to indicate my measurement from the end of this line. So here I would add a positive 7.25. Okay, same result, just a different method to get there. So I'm going to right click OK to get out of this function. I just want to verify that that notch is in fact in the right position. So I'm going to go to Verify, Measure, Between Notches, and I'm going to select this line segment between my endpoint and my notch. I'm just going to click and release. And you see here it says 7.25, which is exactly what I wanted. I'm going to right click OK, and I'm going to clear this measurement. So now I have a notch indicating my waist measurement. Next thing I'm going to do is I want to split this remainder of this rectangle into 3 equal parts that we're going to use to create our A-line shape, our hip curve shape, and then we'll have some ease that we'll eventually add a dart to. Okay. So to break this segment into 3 equal parts, I'm going to go to Create Notch Standard, and I'm going to use the right click option multiple, and I want proportional on line. Distance on line is going to allow me to indicate the distance between the notches that I want, but I don't know what distance I want. I just know that I want 3 equal parts. So I'm going to choose proportional on line. I'm going to select the line, and now I get these 2 thumbtacks. These thumbtacks allow me to define the range in which I want to add these notches. So this thumbtack is where I want it to be, but I want this thumbtack to be at this notch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the actual blue part of the thumbtack. I'm going to click and release it. Okay, again, I'm in value mode here, which I don't want to be. I want to move that thumbtack manually. So you can either choose value here, or you can bunny click to get out of value mode. And then you can see you're able to move this thumbtack around on this line. So as long as you have on Snap to Geometry, this should snap easily to this notch. And once you're there and it's highlighted in red, you just click and release. Now my thumbtacks are placed correctly. I'm going to right click OK. Now it wants me to choose which endpoints I want to notch. But I have an endpoint with a line and I have a notch already here. So I don't need either of these endpoints to have notches. So I'm going to choose none. Now it's asking me to indicate the number of notches that I want to add. So if I want 3 equal parts, I need 2 notches to create 3 equal parts. So in value input, I'm going to select 2 and click OK. And then click OK. So now I have 2 new notches. I'm going to again verify that these are in fact equally spaced. I have 0.75, 0.75, and 0.75. That is great. I'm going to clear these measurements. All right, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start to create our side seam shape. So to do this, we're going to go to create 2-point line. And the first line we're going to make is going to be from this outermost notch to our hip line. To make sure you're selecting directly on the notch, you want to click and hold on the line and drag into that notch. Release, and then click and hold onto this hip line and drag into that end point and release. And right click OK. So now I have this straight line. I'm going to use this straight line to create my A-line shape for the skirt. So I want to extend this line. So to do that, I'm going to go to modify, because I'm modifying the line actions, and I'm going to use adjust. The adjust tool allows you to adjust the length of the line following the current angle of the line. So I'm going to choose adjust. It asks me to select the line. And then you see I can toggle between these 2 black points. And as I get closer to one, it fills in. That means it's ready to select that point. So I want to select this point that's at the hip. And you see now when I move my mouse, the line extends with me. So I don't know how long I want this. Because I'm going to trace this piece off, and this is just a draft, I'm just going to make sure it goes a little bit past my hemline, and I'm going to click and release. Okay, and then right click OK to get out of the function. So now I have this nice A-line shape for my skirt that I'm going to use as my side seam. However, I still have too much ease in my waist, and I don't have any curve in my hip. And I know I need some sort of curve to get from my waist to my hip width. So I'm going to create a 2-point curved line. So if you choose this drop down for 2-point line and choose 2-point curve, you're going to select the line, hold, and drag into this middle notch, release. You're going to click on the hip line, hold, and drag into your end point, and release. And now you see you have the ability to create a curved line. Now, I have Snap to Geometry on, so that's going to affect my ability to create a nice smooth shape. As you see, it's kind of trying to snap to this other point. So I'm going to go down here and click off Snap to Geometry. And now I'm going to zoom in and just use my eye to make a nice hip curve. I don't have a hip curve ruler, so I just kind of have to use my best judgment. Once you have the curve where you want it to be, just click and release to drop it. And right click OK to get out of the function. Okay, so I now have a hip curve for my side seam, an A-line shape for my side seam. Now, for right now, we're not going to do anything with this notch. So right now I have 3/4 of an inch extra ease in my waistline. When we trace off the skirt, we're going to add that into a dart. Okay, so that's why it's okay that our side seam is a little bit wider at our waist right now.